This week on Finally Seen, we have David Allison, and he is one of the world's top experts on human values. As the founder of the Valuegraphics Project, he created the first global data set that measures what drives people, not based on age, gender, or income, but on the values that influence every decision we make. His research has impacted leaders and organizations in over 180 countries, helping them communicate more effectively, build stronger cultures, and inspire lasting loyalty. For anyone growing a brand, leading a movement, or navigating visibility with more intention, this conversation will give you a new lens for how to connect with people you're trying to reach. When you understand what matters most to your audience, everything changes. Your message gets clearer, your impact runs deeper, and your presence becomes magnetic. David, welcome to Finally Seen. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me over. I'm thrilled to be here.
You know, the first time I was introduced to your work was when you were doing, I believe it was a podcast or live stream with Kate from Lately.
Oh, okay.
And I was just sitting there going, yes, this guy gets it. Yeah. And so I just, whenever I started this podcast, I was like, yes, I have got to have David on because talking about values is exactly what I want to emphasize. So one of the things that I remember you said, and I know you even wrote a book about this, demographics are dead.
Yep.
And I know when people hear that, they're going to say, boy, what? That's what we do with marketing. We get demographics. So I thought I'd let you explain.
Sure. First off, thank you for all the kind words. That's very nice of you. And it's funny how you said, yeah, this makes total sense. I have a very polarizing. People either are like, oh my God, this guy makes total sense, or oh my God, this guy's an idiot. What the hell is he talking about? So there doesn't seem to be a lot of people in the middle. I get one side or the other. So I'm glad you're on the right side of that equation. My most recent book is called The Death of Demographics, largely because my publisher convinced me that it was a dramatic title and that it would get noticed. It's, at the end of the day, it's a book about data, so you got to do what you can to get it, people to get excited. Yeah, exactly. I think, the biggest compliment I get is people read the book and they come in, they go, I actually enjoyed that. Because they had no expectation that they were going to enjoy it. It's just like, it's a book about data, so it's going to be boring. And I worked really hard. The world has enough boring business books. We don't need any more. So I worked really hard to make it an interesting book. But yeah, the reason it's called The Death of Demographics isn't because demographics are over, but it's because demographics have failed us in spectacular ways, given how we've been trying to use them. So what's dead is the way that we've tried to use demographics in the past, which is to understand people. As marketers, what we do as human resource directors, as policymakers, as anybody who's trying to engage and inspire groups of people, we look at their demographics and we say, okay, well, what do we know about these people? Let's see. Let's say this group is 73% female. So what are we going to do with that? Well, clearly our packaging needs to be pink because all women love pink, right? And I'm being silly to make a point, but the demographic ideas of who people are lead to demographic stereotyping, which we know as soon as we hear it, like the comment about women liking pink, we know they're wrong. We know they're silly, and yet we just continue to do them. If you don't believe me, go into the toy stores and look at the pink toys and the blue toys. I mean, they're all around us. My other favorite example is show me a television commercial for anybody who still watches television. On household care products, like things to clean the floor or do the dishes or do the laundry or whatever. If there's a man in it, he's an idiot. He doesn't know how to turn on the dishwasher. Thank God his wife is here to show him how to clean the dishes. It's stereotyping and it's all around us. So we set out to figure out, first off, to prove that this stuff is, can I swear on your show?
Yeah.
Okay. To prove that this stuff is bullshit, because it is, and get some data around that. And then also, it's easy to just pick holes in things, but unless you've got a better way to do it, what's the point? You may as well just stay quiet, right? So fast forward, we've done 1 million surveys now around the world, long form qualitative surveys, and a big team of translators, 152 different languages that we've talked to people in. We've put together this enormous first ever global database of who people are on the inside. and what matters most to them and how they make their decisions. Because we all make decisions based on what matters most to me, right? It's kind of common sense. Like I'm trying to decide what can of soup to buy in the grocery store. The one that is more about environmentalism, if that's important to me, that's the one I'm going to choose. If it's not important to me, I'll choose the one that's about whatever is, right? So what matters most is how we make all of our decisions. And the only way to understand what matters most to people is to look at their values. So if you understand who somebody's values are, you know what matters most to them, and then you can talk to them in a way that makes whatever you want them to do an easy yes and make it an obvious choice. And they go, well, why are we even talking about this? Of course, this is what I'm going to do. That's the thing that matters to me. So I'm going to do that one. Now, just to close out your original question, which, wow, I'm taking forever to answer this. Why the death of demographics? After 1 million people and talking to them about who they are and what makes them tick and what their values are, we can segment that database now and look at it based on demographics. And so we proved our point. People inside any demographic cohort, age, gender, income, marital status, number of kids, all those things that we're used to, people in those little categories, they only resemble each other. They're only similar. They're only cohesive as a cohort, on average 10.5%. So
Wow.
How similar are women to each other? 10.5%. How similar Gen Z? How many studies do we see every day coming out saying Gen Z wants this, Gen Z wants that, Gen Z this and that and the other thing? They're only 10% similar to each other. So all those studies are 90% wrong. And just like that, let's just zoom out, and then I'll shut up for a moment and let you get a question in. But like, just zoom out from that for just a second. Gen Z, depending on what numbers you're looking at, are somewhere between 25 and 30% of the total population. And you're trying to tell me they're all the same somehow on any level? Like the single mom who lives in rural Utah and works 3 jobs to just pay the rent, and the tech bro who works on Wall Street in a $7,000 Brunello Cucinelli suit, they're the same because of when their birthday was? What? It doesn't make any sense at all.
That is an excellent example. And, it goes perfectly with the theme of this, because before we hopped on, I was telling you that, I want women to feel seen for all the aspects that they are. And yes, we're women, but we're so many different things. And so I love that you're saying that we're only 10% alike, and we have so many unique aspects about us.
Yeah.
And, when it comes to the values, so what we do is we actually are architecting brands. It's not just the tagline, not just the fluff stuff, but we get into the values of the brand itself and their audience. Those have always been core aspects of what we dig into. And it's been really interesting as we start to work with people, they'll go, oh, I've never thought about it before. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why? How have you never thought about that before?
Yeah. Once you see this stuff, it's impossible to not.
You can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I love your soup example too. I use an example of like if it even comes down to deciding between McDonald's and Chick-fil-A.
Who you're going to
Like,
marry, what sweater I'm going to wear this morning. In fact, you go to neurological, the neurological reason behind why this stuff works. There's a little piece inside your prefrontal cortex called the insula. And the insula has this job, which is to boss you around and tell you how you're going to behave and what you're going to choose. And it does that by looking at all the incoming data, the sights and sounds and smells and memories and hunches and gut level expectation, all this stuff. And saying, all right, well, let's go back to the grocery store. We got these 2 cans of soup. And based on what the label is telling me and the price point and the colors and all these kinds of things and all the memories I have that are associated with that, this one aligns with my values more than that one does. And so that's the one your insula will say to you, go choose that one. Now, it has a reward punishment system. If you choose the one that's aligned with your values, and this goes not just for soup, this goes for who you marry, what your job is, how you dress, what route you take to work today. Every decision, the only way your brain knows how to make decisions is through this process. Everything is being filtered with which one aligns better with my values. You choose the one that aligns with the values and you get a dopamine hit. Your brain says, attaboy, good for you. You made the right choice. you're in a job that aligns with your values, and that's why it feels good going to work and you like your job. Now, on the other hand, if you make a decision that's not aligned with your values, your brain also has a system to give you a little slap, and it's called stress and anxiety and fear and overwhelm and all of those negative emotions. When you're not in a situation that works, like, a great way to think about this is going to a party. So you walk into a room, you've been invited to a party, it's full of people. And I know, everybody listening knows, within maybe 3 minutes, you walk in and go, well, we're hanging out here tonight. This is great. I love it. I love these people. I love this. Or you walk in and go, let's get the heck out of here. Say hi to the host. We promised to show up. Hi. Okay. Well, we're double booked. We have to go somewhere else. That's your insula going, yep, stay here, dopamine, or get the heck out of here. Not good for you. You feel gross here. Go away. So you have no choice except to gravitate towards the things that align with your values. You can't turn it off. It's how your brain works.
I'm going to have to dive into that a little bit more because I study quantum science, quantum physics. I'm a total neuroscience nerd. And so, I've been just studying a lot about the pineal gland and things like that. But I have not studied on what you're talking about. So now I need to go and dive into this.
Yeah, you go poke into that a bit. It's really quite logical when you think about it. And it backs up why we should be doing this. I mean, if this is how everybody's running around making decisions all day long, it's about which thing aligns with my values. And your job as a marketer, as a mom, as a sister, as someone running an HR department, somebody who, regardless of what your job is to get some people to do something. That's kind of what it all boils down to, right? I mean, there's not many roles in the world where it's not about convincing people, inspiring people, trying to get people to come along with what you think is the right thing to do. Well, if the way people are all making decisions is based on which thing aligns with their values, then your job is really just to say, this thing I want you to do, it's aligned with your values. And if you know what they are, well, then you can do your job. Otherwise, you're just randomly guessing or using stereotypes about how all the packaging for women should be pink, because of course, all women love pink. When I'm on stage talking about this, one of the stories I start with is just to make it personal. I talk about myself and say, here's an example of these labels and how misleading they are. I've been married for 30 years now.
Congrats, by the way. That's a long time.
Thank you. And it gets better because I'm married to a guy, and in the gay world, each year counts for 7, like dog years, right? Yeah. So I've actually been married for like 210 years. And so on stage, I'll pull out the LGBTQ plus flag and I'll say, listen, this is a label that I am proud of. I'm happy to fly this flag. It is who I am. But now let's think about what happens as a result of that. Every year during Pride, the entire corporate community tries to take money out of my pocket. And it does that by saying, we know who you are, David. We know who you are. You like glitter. And you dance on floats with no shirt on, don't you? And you and your husband like going shopping for flowers. And it has all these stereotypes about what it means to be a gay married man or a gay man of any description. And they're all wrong. Like I live in a glitter-free household. Glitter is not allowed past the front door here. And nobody needs to see me dancing shirtless on a float. It's just not part of what anybody should have to experience. So the stereotypes are wrong and they can be offensive.
Yeah.
I don't need to tell you the stereotypes about women in leadership. There are offensive stereotypes about why they aren't going to be as good. Why hasn't there been a female president of the United States? Stereotypes about people, about women and what they're capable of doing and how they'd react to being in that position. They're just wrong. And now we have the data to back it up. So we got to start.
Because it made me think, and I can't believe I'm going to talk about this publicly, but it made me think of this conversation I was having with a guy. And I guess he couldn't comprehend the possibility that I would actually be smart. And he kept staring at my chest. And finally I said, you should see my IQ. And his face was like, oh crap, she just caught me staring. And I was like, yeah, bro, stop staring at my chest. Let's have an actual conversation because my IQ is probably higher than yours.
Yeah, exactly.
But it made me think of that. And I love that you're saying how all of these things they'll get on board with something for a particular month. And it makes me think of like October. We're going to see a whole bunch of pink and for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And it's like, well, I love those memes where people will say, instead of putting the pink label on your product or the pink ribbon, can you just take the stuff out that causes cancer? Like,
yeah,
that would be a value.
yeah, exactly.
So I love that. And how's your health? How are you feeling?
I'm pretty much fully recovered. It's a little bit energy lacking still at the gym, but it's getting better every day. It's been 9 months since the surgery now, and it's not something I ever want to go through again. But I mean, the alternative is we hadn't caught it and I'd die. So I guess, a year of my life recovering from this thing is better than a year of my life not recovering and then dying, right? So I'm glad for it. I'm grateful for the surgery, I guess. It's a weird way of thinking about it, but yeah, I am.
No, I get it. Well, good. I wasn't going to bring that up on the podcast, but
I'm talking about it very publicly. I think it's important that we do, because too many men don't get tested for prostate cancer because they think it's embarrassing, or they have, it's a blood test these days, but they have it. Back in the day, it used to be a finger up your butt, your physical. And so guys are like, I'm not doing that. There's no way that's happening. It's just a blood test now. So like, why wouldn't you ask for that and start tracking it?
Yeah, my husband's had cancer before. And so his doctor has been very, like, every year they check all of the numbers. And so, yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
Guys got to go get checked. So maybe we'll put this as a separate PSA.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be the spokesmodel for that. There was a stat that I found when I was researching this, once I had my diagnosis, that 40,000 men a year still die from prostate cancer.
Whoa.
And if you catch prostate cancer early, which is a very large window because it's a very slow growing cancer, right? So you got quite a long time to catch it, and it's still considered early. If you catch it in that time period, it's 99.9% treatable. Like it's not going to kill you. It's only if you totally freaking ignore it, it can kill you. And 40,000 men a year still die because they won't go and get the test, which is just mind-boggling to me. It's 40,000 brothers and fathers and husbands and uncles and are gone because they didn't want to know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad you shared that. Is there a particular example that you can think of? Because you've worked with a bunch of brands, tons of giant brands. Is there an example where once you came in and kind of got this concept through to their team, that they made a shift and they were like, oh my gosh, look at the results?
Yeah. I can think of a couple interesting ones. Okay, big global international brand who I won't name, but if I did, I guarantee 100% of the people listening would know who I'm talking about. So massive global brand. And they came to us and said, David, we want to understand, be careful here so I'm not giving this, I don't want to embarrass them. They came and said, we want to understand Gen Z and why they're using the services and products that we offer instead of our competitors. And I said, okay, cool, we can do that. We can tell you what matters most to them and why they've chosen you. But you realize that those reasons will not be about their age. It'll work for all ages. We're finding out, why do humans choose you? Because their age has got nothing to do with this. And they said, no, we want to understand Gen Z. I was like, okay, cool. Well, here's the contract. Let's go do that. So we went and did it the way we would always do it anyway. And we looked at Gen Z, but we looked at all ages. And I came back to this group and I gave them a presentation. And I said, okay, here's what you wanted to know about Gen Z. Here's why they're your customers. Here's the buttons you can push to move the needle in the right direction and get more of them to be your customers and steal share from your competitors. And entrench brand loyalty so they never leave, and you're reducing churn and all those things that somebody wants to do. And they were like, okay, cool. This is amazing. This is exactly what I want. And, oh yeah, by the way, one more slide. Here's how it's exactly the same for boomers. And they were like, oh, okay, forget Gen Z. This is about everybody. This is about how this is going to work across the board. So I haven't yet seen this because it's highly confidential, but they have internal personas that they use to understand their various customer segments. And apparently all of them have had age scrubbed from them and values inserted.
Amazing.
So this big, giant global international brand has changed the way they think about people because they got information on who we really are on the inside. And that's why we do this work. We are trying to change the way everybody thinks about everybody else, because we got to have a better way to think about each other.
I love that. And I can think of the people I have a rather diverse, both social and professional network, and by a variety of things. And it's just making me think, if I had a group of all of, let's say, my corporate friends, nope, they're not even all alike. It's like, okay, all my stay-at-home mom friends, nope, they're not even all alike.
No, and it's actually a great example because, well, for example, I go to the gym every day, and it's about 4 blocks up the street here, and I go at the same time because I'm going to see the same people when I'm there, and they're all going at the same time because we all want to see each other. It's like our little gang, right? And if you look at our little gang, and use traditional labels to try and understand us, it makes no sense. We've got men and women and rich and poor and young and old, and we don't have anybody who's Black, but we've definitely got Indigenous, we've got Asian, we've got folks who work for big companies, we got some parents, and we got a bunch of singles. So it's our little gang at the gym. So if you were going to try and sell us something, we'd all be in like 27 different target audiences. But because of that behavioral similarity, I can tell you that we all share values like friendship and health and well-being and personal growth and community. Those would be values we have in common. So you could sell us something if you showed us how it would give us more of that. And it wouldn't matter which demographic label we fit into. We're all identical to each other on the inside. If you look on the outside, we all look like we're all different people. And we couldn't possibly have anything in common. In fact, one of my weightlifting buddies that I lift weights with quite frequently is my friend Martin. He's about, I don't know, last birthday, I think he turned 25. And I'm a year or two older. We lift weights together, and we have people come over to us and go, "Oh, isn't it nice you lift weights with your son?" And it always bugs me and him, because it's like, why is it so hard to believe that two people of different ages with a similar interest and pursuit couldn't just be friends? Why do you have to put us in little buckets based on what you think our demographic labels are? It's just the way we've been brought up. So it's time to break that habit and start taking a look at people and understanding who they are in a new and better and more productive way.
I think if we were to start doing that, and people would start realizing the shared values we all actually do have, there are a lot of shared values, that we would be less divided.
Oh,
and when you were talking, it made me think of, so our son is actually, so I know you're Indigenous to Canada. Our son is Native American. And when he was growing up, they had this group and they called themselves the Diverse Crew, because there was about 6 of them of all different types of ethnicities and backgrounds and whatnot. And you're right. The thing they had in common was friendship.
Yeah.
They just wanted to, have fun and be friends, and they didn't care about anything else. And so I love that you said that. And then even myself, like, we hang out with some friends regularly who are 20, 30 years older.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter.
No, if you connect at the level of values, and kids know this. There's a great video. I don't remember where I saw this, but they put these are little kids, like 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, right? And so there's this little white girl and a little black boy, and the off-screen announcer says, How are you doing? And they both go, oh, good, good. So, okay, we have a question today. How are you two different from each other? They look at each other, look up. He doesn't like tomato soup. Like that's what the stuff that as we get older we're taught, oh, very different amounts of pigment in our skin and gender, and but from a kid's perspective, that none of that matters. It's like he doesn't like tomato soup and I do. That's how they see things. And so I think our data can kind of get us back to that. Our data can get us back to a place where we're thinking about our target audiences for marketing in a way that's more accurate and more useful and aligned with brain chemistry and neuroscience so that it's going to work better. And then the side effect of all of this is if, it's a big dream, but all the audiences I speak to, all the podcasts I'm on, the books I write, everything, it's all the same goals, just to try and get people to change the way they think about each other. If we can get enough people on board with this, then there's going to be this beautiful side effect. And that's that we will stop using demographic stereotypes to understand each other. And we will stop automatically assuming that because my target audience is 73% female, that they're all going to like pink, and that all the gay guys out there like glitter, and then all of these things. And so that's good because we're getting rid of some of those stereotypes, which can be harmful and hurtful and definitely do not work. But more importantly, those stereotypes, which we perpetuate innocently as long as we continue using demographics, we're just propping them up by saying this is how we're going to look at each other. Those stereotypes fuel things like ageism and sexism and racism and homophobia and ableism and classism and We're all trying to find ways to be more united and less divisive. And yet at the same time, we're running around using this system to understand each other that's about pushing people apart and saying we're different from each other because of all of these external characteristics that have nothing to do with who we really are. So I think we're our own worst enemies half the time. If that's the goal, is to try and be less divisive, then why are we using all these tools that are about dividing us?
Why do you think this hasn't caught on sooner? Why do you think we're still using that old, outdated system?
Tired of overpriced energy drinks full of junk? Same. That's why I use Bobello, a self-carbonating hydration packet that gives you clean energy, electrolytes, and vitamins without the crash. Just add water, shake, and sip. It's way more affordable than typical energy drinks and way better for you. Use code ChrissyBernal15 at checkout to get 15% off at drinkbobello.com. Hydration just got an upgrade.
Well, demographics have been around as a way to think about each other since pre-language. There's a whole field of study called heuristics, which are about the snap decisions that we make when we see things in our world. So, let's come back with me for a little trip into history here. We go back to the dawn of time, and you're cavemen sitting outside your cave, and you've just killed the mastodon, and you're having a nice mastodon burger with your wife and your kids, and the kids are over there playing, with the dinosaur bones and whatever they're doing. And then across the hill comes a group of people. You need to be able to look at them and decide whether you got to run or whether you're going to say, hey, come on over and have a burger. And so we survived by making snap judgments based on what we could see. And to this day, I mean, you think about the Hollywood storytelling, the tropes, right? So you and I are the stars of our own Hollywood movie, and we're walking down the street, and suddenly the streets start getting a little darker, and we're in a bad neighborhood, and this 4 black guys come around the corner and start walking towards us. It's automatically a bad thing. It's like we're in danger. They could be 4 social workers who are out trying to make sure that nobody, give everybody sandwiches and make sure that they have somewhere to sleep tonight. 4 old white grannies come around the corner. And suddenly the music is like, we all know how the scene would change because we're conditioned to understand that 4 cute little old white, they could be serial killers for all we know. but they're cute little old white ladies. So of course they're going to be, happy music, and there'll be bluebirds coming in, and they'll have flowers in there. And it's like, but the stereotypes are so ingrained in the way we think about things that it's I wish sometimes that what we'd invented was just, the proverbial better mousetrap, because it wouldn't be so hard to convince the whole world to forget the way they've been thinking for millennia and think about people in a different way. I picked a little tiny mountain to climb.
Maybe we should wear shirts or something that like clearly state our values, and instead of like, "Hi, I'm Chrissy," it could be, "Hi, integrity is important to me."
Yeah, that would be great, right? It would be wonderful. And in fact, we can't give you a shirt, but you could make one. But we have in recent years developed a personal values assessment.
I saw that on your website.
Which is new, right? So we started this as a sociological data company, being able to profile large groups of people for marketing, for human resources, for public policy, for all those kinds of things. And that's been what we've been doing for 10 years. So now there's the thing called the values identifier. And it's kind of, think about it like not Clifton Strengths or one of those assessment tools that you take, and it tells you all about yourself, right? So it's about 150 questions, takes about 30, 40 minutes, and you get back a 35 page report on what your values are and how they compare to everybody else in the world, and where your blind spots are, and why some stuff just pisses you off and why other stuff makes you feel really good, and how to fix the times where you're maybe living in a way that's not aligned with your values as much as you'd like. And we've had people break down and cry when they take this, because they see themselves for the first time. And they're like, "Oh, that's why I behave like, that's why this bugs me so much. I got to work on this. I got to work on that." It's a really, really powerful, it's $59. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to understand what's driving you in your life for, $59 and 30 minutes of your time.
That brings up a really good point, because I know that all companies try to establish their values. They might put them up on the wall with their cutesy mission statement. It's really a bunch of fluff. And I know that whenever I went to establish my values, I was working with my coach, and we did a values mining where we actually dove in. Why is that my value? And so it would have been a lot faster. I would have just
Yeah. Well, a couple points on that. You bring up two interesting things. So many companies spend so much time and money trying to figure out what their values are as an organization, or what the values are of a brand or something like that. And that's cool. But I would urge people to stop thinking about those as values and actually start thinking about them more as, guiding principles. Here's how we would like you to behave when you come to work here. Or here's how we would like this brand to feel out there in the marketplace. Valuable work. But what we're talking about is human values. So let's put it in a workplace culture perspective. Your corporation's values can be X, Y, and Z, and they're on the wall behind the receptionist. But those aren't the values of the people who come to work there. Those are the values those are the guiding principles. Here's how we want you to behave. Teamwork, creativity. Let's pick three: teamwork, creativity, and responsible stewardship. Those are our three corporate values. The CEO signed off, the shareholders saw it in last year's annual report, everybody's happy. Cool. Now the people coming to work there, they're not going to have those values. Let's say one of their values is, personal growth. That's something that they over-index on amongst the population of folks who are coming to work in that particular organization. So the trick is, you as an organization have to be able to say to those folks, listen, we understand that personal growth is what's driving you and what matters most to you. And if you are creative and collaborative and a good steward, here's how it's going to help you with your personal growth. Oh, the people say, now I get why I should give a damn about any of those corporate values. I see how it helps you with my values. Now it makes sense. And I think so many organizations mix those up. They say, here's the values of our organization. Why isn't everybody doing this? Why isn't it? And it's because that's not about your people. It's about some set of lofty principles you have about how you want the organization to to move forward. Two
I love
totally
that.
different things. Two totally different things.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And because, as humans, we're pretty much all like, what's in it for me?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, for sure. And even the most beautiful, compassionate, altruistic people out there are looking for ways to live more aligned with their values. So yeah, you can, like, making a joke, say they're out hunting for what's in it for me. What's in it? How does this help my values? And that's what being human is. We're all on a mission every day to wake up and find things that align with our values. And you don't even know you're doing it. It's this subconscious, thing that's happening in your brain. But that's how we navigate. That's how the species has evolved, is by constantly being rewarded for doing the smart thing that aligns with our values, and being punished when we do the dumb thing that has nothing to do with our values. That's how the goddess has helped us make sure we do more smart things than dumb things, and that we continue to be here.
well, it makes me think too, we were talking earlier about we get the hit of dopamine, or we get the stress, all these things. And last year I ended up with an autoimmune issue, but regardless, it makes me understand my nervous system more and have to pay attention to my nervous system. And now that I understand my values and why I have those values, something happened recently, and it was a particular thing a client did. And boy, my entire body got hot,
Yeah.
really hot. And thankfully, now that I'm a little bit more self-aware, I went, okay, which of my values just got trampled on? Why is that bothering me? And what do I need to do about it? And it was just really, it allowed me to shift out of the anxiety and the heat of my body really fast, or faster, because I was able to really use it as a tool to figure out, okay, why is this bothering me?
Perfect.
That sort of thing. And you're also making me think, earlier this year, I ended up losing a lot of money, getting screwed over on a particular situation. And it was because somebody used my value against me.
Yeah.
And I let my boundaries get trampled on, and which hence the reason why I've done so much work
Yeah.
on my own understanding my own values. But
Okay, so you really should take the values identifier. You're already
yeah.
steeped in this, but what you'll find is some surprises. I absolutely guarantee it.
Oh,
Because
I bet.
here's the thing: when you just think about your values, or a coach is helping you work through what your values are. Sometimes you'll look at lists of words, or you won't. You'll just free associate. The problem with all of that, while it's better than doing nothing, believe me, the problem with all of that is that there's unconscious bias that creeps in. For yourself or for your coach, you are, without, even if you're trying hard not to, you're still going to paint a picture of yourself in a certain way that aligns with how you'd like to be seen, or how you'd like to think about yourself in the world. It's impossible not to be biased. I mean, it gives a silly example. You put a room full of people together and say, who values family? I mean, who's going to say no, right? Who values the environment? And says, who's going to say no? Who wants happiness and love? Everyone's like, yeah, those are mine. So we all want these things. There's only 56 values. So first off, let's get that on the table. There's only 56 of them. And that's based on talking to 1 million people with data that's more accurate than you need for a PhD. So I'm sitting here today to say there are only 56 values. There are no more and no less. If we ask you a bunch of questions about what you do and how you behave, and since we know that behaviors and decisions are all driven by values, it's much cleaner and with less bias that we'll be able to go into our database and go, oh, people who behave like that and do things like you, after talking to 1 million of them, we can tell you that this is your value, and this is your value, and this is your value. So we never ask you about your values, because just try as hard as you can. If someone asks you about your values, you're going to not be as accurate as if we just ask you about, what do you do? And how do you behave in this situation? And what do you think about this?
Yes, you're right. So that makes me think. So one of my friends is a financial genius. And she's always said, give me your bank statement and I'll tell you your values.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's behaviors are, if you can watch people's behaviors when they don't know they're being watched, or when they're, responding to questions in a way where they know it's absolutely confidential and no one's ever going to be able to see. That's the best indication of what you can see what's driving them. And in fact, that's how we built the database in the first place, is we asked 1 million people around the world about what do they do and how do they behave all day. And then you put 1 million people's responses to that on the table and you sort it out into piles and you go, oh, there's 56 things that are driving people to do stuff all over the world. Gross simplification of a very complex data set, but that's basically, I talk about it like Halloween candy. You come home, back in the day, kids would come home with a pillowcase full of candy and you spread it on the dining room table and you stand back and go, what have we got here? Bubble gum and full-size chocolate bars and those little orange and brown ones that you only see at Halloween that taste kind of like toffee. And so you put it into piles. And that's what we did. We talked to 1 million people about what they do, dumped it all out on the dining room table to figure out what was making people do all these things. And there's 56 things driving people to do stuff. Now, here's what's interesting. Inside each one of those piles, so let's say this little pile over here is lollipops. All kinds of, the point is it's all kinds of lollipops. They're not all the same. So let's call that pile one of the most important value in the United States of America is belonging. So let's say the lollipops are the belonging pile. Well, there's 912 different kinds of belonging in the database. Every value has hundreds of definitions, hundreds of variations, right? So belonging to me and to you might mean totally different. In fact, it could be any one of 912 different things. So when you do the values identifier, or we profile an audience for marketing purposes, we can say, oh, look, these folks are over-indexing on belonging. Oh, off the chart, more important to them than anyone else. And here's exactly what it means to them, so that you know the conditions that need to be present in order to give them the values alignment that will drive them to say yes and gravitate towards whatever it is you're trying to get them to do. So in the values assessment device that we've been talking about, we'll be able to tell you what your values are and what they mean to you, and therefore what you should be looking to put in your life so you can have more alignment with that stuff. So the fact that you've already done so much work around it means that were you to take this, you would find it fascinating, because it's going to confirm some things for you. And it's also going to tell you that, no, it's actually this. And you'll be like, no, oh, well, actually, you're right. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I definitely have to do it.
Yeah.
So what do you think in like the next, because earlier I think we were talking about the trust recession and where, we're so divided. I think pretty much all over the world, it feels like everyone's divided. Where do you think values are going to kind of come into play or evolve? Like, do you think we're getting better? Are we getting to a better spot?
Well, I mean, what I can tell you is, first off, I'm not sure if this is what you meant, but just in case it's implicit for anybody listening in what you just said, our values don't change. So values aren't changing. We're not looking at the world getting different values. All we're looking at is people responding to the world around them in different ways based on their values. So you get your values in your late childhood, early adolescence. They're locked and loaded. They're yours for the rest of your life. So no matter what happens to you, everything you do is going to be based on that same set of values. So when we see the world changing around us, we tend to look at that and go, oh, our values are changing. So, no, the way we're behaving is changing because of conditions, but we're making those decisions on how to behave differently based on the same set of values. That's the bedrock that underlies all the things we're watching, right? So your question, what's going on and where's this going to go? I don't know how long it's going to take, but you're in the United States. So let's talk about the United States. There's a lot of divisiveness. And I think, I don't care where you are on the political spectrum, you'll agree there's a lot of divisiveness right now. Everybody's on board with that idea. And so what I can tell you based on studies we've done is that at some point, you're going to find your way back home, because your values are too similar on either end of the political divide. You have very similar values. How you believe those values need to be represented and the conditions that need to be present for you to get those values in alignment are a little bit different, but the values are the same. Let me give you a story about that. When trying to do this in a nonpartisan way, I don't want to piss anybody off because this stuff is supposed to be about all of us, right? The current political actors started to influence the political scene. I thought this would be a really great opportunity for me to selfishly get some press coverage. So I profiled people who only watch CNN and people who only watch Fox and said, okay, let's figure this out. Because one thing I know about the media is if you can give them information to report on about the media, they love that. They love being able to say, those other guys over at that other network, they're like, right? So I was like, okay, we're going to find some interesting stuff out here. I'm going to send the CNN results to Fox and the Fox results to CNN and see if I can get them to talk about this stuff. And in fact, nothing happened because when I got the results back, I saw that the people on both sides were so similar to each other that there really wasn't a story there. There was no big divide in values. As an example, family, hugely important on both sides. And I don't know if it's dangerous to tell this story or not, but I will. There was a moment during the afternoon where all of those people came into the Capitol and were trying to break windows, and I don't want to put a label on it, but we all know what I'm talking about. It was a bad time in American history. There was a lot of really angry people doing really bad things in a building where none of that stuff should have ever happened. And some people's lives were threatened and they felt really scared. And there was a moment that's in a lot of the footage that gets shared around that moment, where one of the security guards who was working in that building was being pressed up against a wall behind a kind of iron fence, and they were pushing, and you can hear the crowd screaming, "Kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him." And he's crying and yelling and screaming and thinks he's going to die. And he said, "I have kids." And they stopped and they didn't kill him. They let him go. Now, they didn't pick him up off the floor and give him a kiss, but they didn't kill him. So his soul survived that day. And the people who were on the other side of that altercation did not become murderers that day because of the power of family, that value that unites both sides of this division. That value saved lives that day and saved souls that day. So I look at these data, and that's just one study we've done. I look at all these studies we've done, and no matter how far right and left we look in the United States, the values are so similar that I know at some point you're going to see that in each other, and you're going to be able to come back together. I don't know what it's going to take. I'm not a fortune teller, but somehow the end result of this will be that you come back together.
I think that what's coming to mind for me is, we need to have the conversations that bring up these values to make each other realize, oh, hey, we do have these same values. What are we arguing about? And it makes me think, there are evil people on every side of the coin. Well, I know there's two sides to a coin, but you get what I'm saying. I feel like some of the people who are ne'er-do-wells and don't want good things, they're just bad people. They're just trying to pull more people in. And I think that division is really, really a tool that is used, like getting us to forget our shared values is the tool.
And you know what, if you look back over history, there's not a single example where things got better by doubling down on what makes us different from each other. Not a single example in the course of history. The only way things ever get better is by seeing what we have in common, finding that common ground, and then saying, okay, we disagree about a lot of stuff, but at least we see some common ground. Now, based on that, let's figure out how we can solve some of these problems. I mean, let's take it to an extreme case. If you go to hostage negotiation school, it's much more complex than I'm about to explain it. But basically what you do as a hostage negotiator is you have to establish contact with the hostage taker. And then the first job is you have to find some place where you have common ground. You got to find a shared value. And then if you find that shared value, together, you can figure out how to get ourselves out of this situation. Values are the answer to everything. Everything that goes on in the world around us can be fixed if we lean into the stuff that's most important, what matters most to us. And if we are willing to recognize what matters most to the other person, we can suddenly start to understand what's going on and, just take it down to a personal level. You're going about your day at the office and somebody's just like behaving badly. And instead of snap judgments about, oh, well, they're like this or like that or whatever, if you just take a moment and go, what's going on over there? Somebody's having a bad reaction to someone's values or not alignment right now. So how can I help diffuse that situation by figuring out how to put their values back in alignment? That's a far more productive way than to just be like, oh, you horrible people from the warehouse floor, you're always losing your stack about something. Why are you up here yelling and screaming again? No, what's going on? People don't just like randomly decide to yell and scream because they think it's fun. People behave badly because something's not right. And if we can take the time to figure that out for each other, we can solve all these problems. We're not going to solve all the problems, but we can start moving towards solutions for things.
I love that. Well, I think that's a wonderful place to wrap it up. And, you talked about this quiz. Where can people get this quiz?
Oh, so I'll give you a few different things to think about. So yeah, valuesidentifier.com is where you can go, and the data team who works on that will light their hair on fire if we call it a quiz. It's
okay. Sorry.
it's an assessment. I call it a survey, and I get in trouble. So a quiz would make them really light up. But it's a values identifier. It's a personal values assessment. Like I said, I don't mean I'm not here trying to sell anything, but it's for $59, you are going to end up understanding who you are. And what a great investment that is. The values assessment is 150 questions long, takes about 30 minutes. And by the time you're done, within a few seconds, you're going to get a report on who you are, what your values are, how they show up in your life, what your blind spots are, and how you can just be a better values-driven person in your personal and professional life. And we're going to give one away. So if people are listening and they would like to be entered to win one of these, all you have to do is remember the secret word, which is cauliflower. I just totally made that up, but that's the secret word, cauliflower. So I hope you win, and I hope you find out some really great things about yourself. So
thank you for the therapy session.
Yeah, definitely. So there's that. If you're interested in my work as a speaker, which is the bulk of my work these days is getting on stage and being an evangelist about this stuff, you can find my speaking information at davidallisoninc.com. And then the research company that does this profiling work for big brands all around the world, small brands too, we do little brands, it's valuegraphics.com. So those would be the three places. And if anybody listening is interested in hanging out and just like getting to know each other a bit better, LinkedIn is the place where I spend most of my time.
I'm loving LinkedIn. I'm finding the ones that have genuine conversations on there, it turns into something really good. And just a funny thing, I thought, Bernal, interesting, not a ton of us, but I do see a lot of us. Like I'm the only Chrissy Bernal, I think, spelled exactly like me in all of Houston, I know, but like on Threads, I'm the only Chrissy Bernal on there. But so I thought, I'm going to go find other people with the last name Bernal. I just want to see. And I ended up connecting with one woman out of California. And, we got to chatting via the messages, and we thought, let's have a little Zoom coffee. And so we met. It turns out our husbands both have grandparents from Spain who came here to the U.S. And so we're like, well, maybe there is a relation between our husbands. But we just clicked so well. And it became, it's because we had a genuine conversation on LinkedIn. And, we did talk about our shared values.
Bingo. that is a good way to end here. When you meet people and you just click with them, it's because you see the world through the same set of filters. You share a set of values. You meet people and you do not click with them. You just cannot, figure that person out, or I just can't get along with that person. You don't have any values in common. I would like to live in a world where we understand the values that we have in common with each other, and we can understand what our own values are, and where we can see ways to impact the people we're trying to impact with our work based on who they really are on the inside. And I don't think I'm asking too much of the universe for us to just stop using outdated demographic stereotypes to understand each other and start understanding each other based on what matters most to us. And I think that's a pretty reasonable ask, I think.
I think so. I love that. I think so. And we don't necessarily have to include this in the podcast, but I'm thinking like on the quantum science level, do you know what any of the values, like the frequency of any of the values, have you been able to measure any of that?
Frequency, help me understand what you're asking.
Because like every thought's going to have frequency that it emits, because everything is energy. So I'm just curious about that.
No, we've never connected those dots. No.
Now I'm curious. I'm going to have to dive in a little bit and see. I totally can geek out when it comes to quantum science. So, I'm one of those time's a construct people. Yeah.
Time is fluid these days.
Well, thank you so much, David. I really enjoyed this conversation. I've been looking forward to it. And I'm very grateful that you came on. And I know you're going to change some people's thoughts on what they need to be focusing on. So thank you.
I sure hope so. And thank you for the opportunity to see if we can't make that happen. Thank you.